I want to start today's conversation with a number that, frankly, when I first saw it in our research stack, I thought it was a typo. It just seemed too high to be real. 8.9 million.
It is a staggering figure. It's hard to wrap your head around, really.
It really is. That is the number of osteoporotic fractures that happen worldwide every single year.
Every year.
And if you break that down, if you do the math on how that plays out in real time, it averages out to roughly one fracture every 3 seconds.
1, 2, 3, snap. Just like that. Someone, somewhere, has just broken a bone due to osteoporosis.
That is terrifying. It's like a conveyor belt of broken bones.
Yeah.
But here's the thing that makes this a true mystery, and really the heart of the mission for this deep dive. We live in a world where people are trying. They are, seemingly doing the right things. We've been told since kindergarten to drink our milk for strong bones.
Right. Got milk.
Yeah.
It's been drilled into us.
Exactly. We have millions of people faithfully swallowing these chalky calcium tablets every morning, taking their vitamin D, thinking they're building a suit of armor.
And yet, the data shows the armor is crumbling. Bone density in developed nations, places where nutrition is supposedly abundant, is still on the decline. The fracture rates are stubbornly high.
So we have the inputs. We have the calcium, we have the vitamin D, we have this massive dairy industry marketing machine, but the result isn't there. Why? That is the question we are answering today.
That is the calcium paradox. And for a long time, it really baffled the medical community. You have patients with high calcium intake who still have weak bones.
It just doesn't compute.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
But the research we're unpacking today suggests that for decades, we've been missing a massive critical piece of the puzzle. We've been so obsessed with getting calcium into the body absorption that we completely forgot to ask the logistical question.
Which is,
where does that calcium go once it is inside?
it's not just about intake, it's about traffic control.
Precisely. Think of it this way. You can back a dump truck full of high-quality bricks up to a construction site. You can dump them on the front lawn. But if you don't have a mason, a skilled engineer, to actually take those bricks and cement them into the wall, what happens?
They just pile up. You've got a mess on the lawn.
They just pile up, and in the human body, a pileup of calcium isn't just useless, it can be lethal.
And that brings us to the hero of our story today, the missing link. The nutrient that acts as the chief engineer for your entire mineral transport system. We are talking about vitamin K2.
Vitamin K2.
Yeah.
It is arguably the most underrated, misunderstood, and chemically complex nutrient in modern preventative medicine. It's the one everyone forgot about.
And I want to flag something right at the top here. Because when I read heart health in the notes, I did a double take. We're talking about bones, obviously.
Yeah.
But the stakes here are actually what the research calls double jeopardy.
That's a perfect term for it.
Because if you don't have this traffic director, if you don't have K2, that calcium doesn't just disappear. It ends up in the arteries.
Which leads to arterial calcification. This is the nightmare scenario we see. You end up with brittle, hollow bones because the calcium isn't getting there, and stiff, hardened arteries because the calcium is going there instead.
It is the worst of both worlds.
Absolutely. You essentially get bone forming in your arteries and your actual bones turning to dust. It's a catastrophic misallocation of resources.
So the mission for this deep dive is to solve that paradox. We're going to unpack exactly what K2 is. And I guarantee when I said vitamin K, half our listeners thought of a spinach salad.
Oh, for sure.
We need to correct that immediately.
It's a common mistake, but a big one. We need to dismantle that assumption right from the start.
We're going to break down the mechanics, the actual biology of how it moves calcium around. We'll look at the history, going all the way back to Weston A. Price and his mystery factor.
Activator X?
We'll look at the synergy with vitamin D3, which is a game changer for anyone taking supplements. And we're going to get into the weeds on sources, including a very controversial, sticky, smelly superfood called natto.
Ah, yes. The Nadon factor. You either love it or you run from the room.
I am firmly in the running category, but you might convince me otherwise by the end of this hour.
We'll see.
And finally, we will talk dosage, safety, and protocols. So buckle up. Let's solve the calcium paradox.
Let's get into it.
Okay, let's clear the air immediately. Vitamin K. When I hear that, my brain goes to one place. My doctor telling me to eat more kale. I think of blood clotting. If I get a paper cut, vitamin K saves me. Is that what we were talking about today?
No, and this is where the branding of vitamins has really, really failed the public. It's a nomenclature disaster, frankly.
A disaster.
Yes, because what you're describing is vitamin K1. The scientific name is phylloquinone.
Phylloquinone.
Yes,
Yeah.
and K1 is fantastic stuff. Its primary workspace is the liver. It's a liver-centric vitamin. Its job is to regulate clotting factors, specifically factors 2, SEM, IX, and X, so that if you get a cut, your blood can coagulate. You don't bleed out.
So it's essential for survival.
Absolutely essential. And because it is so abundant in leafy green spinach, broccoli, kale, most people in developed countries actually get enough K1 just by eating a somewhat balanced diet.
So K1 deficiency isn't really a huge problem for most people?
It is rarely a deficiency issue in the modern world, no.
Okay, so K1 is the clotting guy. He lives in the liver. He eats salad. He keeps us from bleeding to death. Simple enough.
Essentially, yes. But vitamin K2, or menaquinone, is a completely different beast. Functionally, it acts almost like a completely separate nutrient.
How so? What makes it so different?
Well, structurally, it has a different side chain that allows it to bypass the liver and go exploring. It doesn't get stuck there, so to speak.
Let's talk about that structure for a second. We don't usually get into chemical diagrams here, but why does the shape matter so much?
It matters because structure dictates function in biology. It's everything. Both K1 and K2 share a quinone ring structure. That's the head of the molecule, you could say.
Yeah.
But the tail, the side chain, is what makes them different. K1 has what's called a phytyl side chain. K2 has an isoprenoid side chain.
Isoprenoid.
Right. And that longer, more complex side chain makes K2 more lipophilic. It loves fat. It's designed to travel.
So it hitches a ride on fats in the bloodstream.
Exactly. It allows K2 to be transported in low-density lipoproteins, LDL, yes, the same LDL we talk about with cholesterol, and travel throughout the entire body. It leaves the liver, it goes to the blood vessel walls, it goes to the bones, it goes to the soft tissues, the brain, everywhere.
So K2 is the traveler.
Yeah.
K1 is a homebody stuck in the liver.
That's a perfect analogy. K2 is the systemic regulator, and its job in those peripheral tissues has absolutely nothing to do with clotting. Its job is specifically to regulate calcium distribution.
And K1 can't do that.
K1 cannot do that effectively. So you can eat all the kale in the world, have perfect clotting factors, and still be completely deficient in the nutrient needed to guide calcium into your bones and out of your arteries.
That is a huge distinction. It really feels like they shouldn't even share a letter. It's like calling a plumber and an electrician by the same job title just because they both work on houses.
It really is confusing branding, and historically, it stems from how they were discovered and grouped together. But for the listener, the key takeaway is this. K1 is for clotting, K2 is for calcium.
So if you're looking at a supplement, a vitamin K supplement, and it doesn't specify which one,
You are probably getting K1, which is fine, but it isn't going to help your osteoporosis risk at all. You need to look for K2, specifically menaquinone.
before we get into the mechanics of how it works, I want to touch on the history. Because K2 isn't exactly new, right? This isn't some brand new discovery. We just forgot about it.
That's exactly right. To really understand it, we have to go back to the 1930s and a man named Dr. Weston A. Price.
Right, the dentist.
He was a dentist, but really he was more of an anthropological nutritionist, a true pioneer.
I've heard of him. He traveled the world looking at teeth, didn't he?
He did. He was fascinated by the decline in health he was seeing in his Cleveland practice. So he traveled to these isolated communities, indigenous tribes in Africa, isolated Swiss villages, Inuit communities in the Arctic, basically people who were untouched by modern processed foods.
And what did he find?
He found that these people had perfect dental structures, wide dental arches, no cavities, perfectly straight teeth, and incredible resistance to infectious diseases.
And crucially, they weren't brushing and flossing 3 times a day or using modern dentistry.
No, they weren't. But when he analyzed their diets, he found they were consuming massive amounts of minerals and fat-soluble vitamins compared to the American diet of the time. 10 times the amount in some cases.
Wow.
But he also found something else, a mystery nutrient that he couldn't identify with the technology of his day.
He called it Activator X. Sounds like a sci-fi serum or something out of a comic book.
It does. And he found this Activator X in very specific foods. The butter fat of cows eating rapidly growing green grass in the spring and fall, in fish eggs, in organ meats, shellfish.
So nutrient-dense animal fats.
Exactly. And he realized that this substance worked in synergy with vitamin A and vitamin D. He saw that it was essential for mineral utilization. If people had Activator X in their diet, they had strong bones and teeth. If they didn't, they had decay and bone problems.
And it took us decades to realize that activator X was actually vitamin K2.
Exactly. For about 60 years, that knowledge was sort of lost or obscured. The nutrition world went down the low-fat path. We focused on K1 and clotting, and this whole area of research was just forgotten.
That is fascinating. It's a lost treasure of nutrition that we're only now rediscovering.
It really is. It's only in the last couple of decades that we've really connected the dots and realized Price was right all along. He had identified K2.
Okay, so we've established that K2 is the calcium regulator, the long-lost activator X. But let's look under the hood. How does a vitamin move a mineral? I love the analogy in the source material about the construction crew, but biologically, what is actually happening at a cellular level?
To understand the mechanism, we have to introduce two very specific proteins. These are the workers that K2 manages. The first one is called osteocalcin.
Osteocalcin. Sounds like a bone thing.
It is the bone thing. It's a protein made by your bone-building cells.
The osteoblast.
The osteoblasts, exactly. These are the builders. They are responsible for laying down new bone matrix. And as part of that process, these osteoblasts produce this protein, osteocalcin.
Okay, so the body makes the protein. That's step one.
It does. But, and this is the critical part that most people miss, when osteocalcin is first produced, it is biologically inactive.
What does that mean, inactive?
It's like a worker who shows up to the job site but hasn't clocked in yet. He's just standing there. In scientific terms, we say it is uncarboxylated.
Uncarboxylated. That's a mouthful. Break that down for us.
It's a chemical term, but the concept is simple. The protein structure is missing a specific chemical group, a carboxyl group, that acts like a claw. It needs this claw to be able to grab onto calcium.
So without it, it's smooth. It can't get a grip.
Precisely. Calcium just slides right off it. It's useless for building bone. It requires vitamin K2 as a cofactor to undergo a process called carboxylation.
So K2 is the thing that gives it the claw.
That's a great way to think about it. K2 acts as an enzyme cofactor that adds a carbon dioxide molecule to specific parts of the protein. It essentially grows a thumb on the protein's hand.
It activates
It activates it. Once it is carboxylated, osteocalcin changes its shape. It can now physically bind to calcium ions and anchor them into the hydroxyapatite crystal lattice of the bone.
So let's go back to the construction site analogy to really cement this,
Sure.
pun intended.
Right. So calcium is the bricks, the raw material.
Bricks.
Vitamin D is the foreman. The foreman's job is to get the materials to the site. So vitamin D helps you absorb calcium from your gut into your blood.
Okay, so vitamin E gets the bricks delivered to the lot.
Exactly. But if you stop there, you just have a pile of bricks sitting on the grass. You have potential, but no structure.
Right.
Vitamin K2 is the skilled mason. It activates the osteocalcin, which is the worker who takes the bricks and actually places them into the wall, cementing them in place.
And without the mason. Without K2.
Without the mason, the osteocalcin remains uncarboxylated. It stays inactive, the bricks don't get used, and the calcium just floats around in the bloodstream looking for somewhere to go.
And that leads us to the second protein, which I think is even more fascinating. Because the body isn't stupid. It knows that this free-floating calcium is dangerous. It has a backup plan, or at least a defense system, right?
It does, and this is where we get deep into the heart health side of things. There is another K2-dependent protein called matrix GLA protein, or MGP.
MGP?
MGP is the artery defender. Its job is the exact opposite of osteocalcin. While osteocalcin is trying to pull calcium into the bone,
MGP is trying to push it out of other places.
yes, it's patrolling the soft tissues, specifically the arterial walls, and actively preventing calcium from depositing there. It's one of the most powerful inhibitors of soft tissue calcification that we know of.
So it's the bouncer. It's kicking calcium out of the club being your arteries.
That's a perfect way to put it. It binds to calcium crystals and stops them from growing in the elastin fibers of your arteries, which is what keeps them flexible. But just like osteocalcin, MGP is produced in an inactive, uncarboxylated state.
Let me guess. It needs K2 to be activated.
It depends entirely on vitamin K2 to be activated.
So if I don't have enough K2...
If you don't have K2, your MGP stays inactive. It can't do its job. It can't stop the calcium. And that loose calcium in your blood starts to bind to the vascular smooth muscle cells in your arteries. This leads to vascular calcification.
Hardening of the arteries.
The very definition of it. That is the double whammy.
It really is.
And we have seen this directly in the research. It's not just a theory. There are large-scale studies, like the Rotterdam study, and others published in major journals like Thrombosis and Hemostasis.
What did they find?
They've shown that people with high levels of inactive MGP, which is a direct proxy for K2 deficiency, have significantly greater arterial stiffness and a much higher risk of cardiovascular events.
So it's not theoretical. We can see it in the population. It's measurable.
We can see it. We can measure it. K2 deficiency is a dual threat. You are getting weaker bones because the calcium isn't getting in, and you are getting stiffer arteries because the calcium isn't being kept out.
It fundamentally redefines K2. It's not just a bone vitamin. It is a critical nutrient for preventative cardiovascular medicine.
Absolutely. That really drives home why the just take more calcium advice is so outdated and, frankly, potentially dangerous. You're essentially flooding the system with bricks and firing the entire masonry crew.
That is a perfect way to put it. You're fueling the problem.
That's what some researchers argue. High calcium supplementation without adequate K2 might actually increase heart attack risk for exactly this reason.
Yeah.
You are fueling the plaque. You are turning your arteries into bone-like structures.
Arteries into bone. That is a terrifying image.
It is. But that's what calcification is. It's the ossification or the boning of soft tissue.
So we know we need K2. But as I was reading through the research for this, I realized K2 isn't just one thing either. It's like the rabbit hole gets deeper. There are subtypes.
Yes.
And this seems to be where a lot of people get tripped up when they look at supplement labels. We have MK4 and MK7. What is the difference? And does it really matter which one you get?
Oh, it matters a lot. It makes a huge difference in terms of effect and dosage. As we mentioned, menaquinones, that's the scientific name for the K2 family, come in different chain lengths.
Right, the isoprenoid side chain.
Exactly. The number after the MK just refers to the length of that chain. So MK4 has a chain with 4 of those units, MK7 has 7, and so on.
Okay, let's start with a short one then. MK4, where do we find that?
MK4 is the form found primarily in animal products. It's also the only form our bodies can create, but only in very small amounts by converting K1. But it's not an efficient process at all.
So if I'm eating animal foods, I'm getting MK4.
Yes. Butter, egg yolks, organ meats, and especially meat from grass-fed animals. The animals eat the K1 in the grass, and their bodies do the conversion to MK4, which then gets stored in their fatty tissues.
Okay. Natural animal-based. That sounds good on the surface.
It is good. It's the form found in the human brain, for instance, and other tissues. But the major problem with MK4 when we talk about supplementation or achieving a therapeutic effect for bone density is its bioavailability.
Meaning how well we absorb it and use it.
And for how long it stays in the body. MK4 has a very, very short half-life in the human blood.
Short, meaning a day.
Meaning hours, maybe 1 to 2 hours, tops. Your body metabolizes it and clears it very quickly. It enters the blood and is rapidly taken up by tissues or excreted.
So it's a flash in the pan.
Exactly. So to maintain effective levels of MK4 in your blood, to constantly activate those proteins, you have to take it frequently.
Like multiple times a day.
Yes, and in very high doses. The clinical trials done in Japan that show bone benefits with MK4, they use a dose of 45 milligrams per day.
45 milligrams. Let's put that in perspective.
That is 45,000 micrograms. Hold that number in your head. It's a pharmaceutical dose, not a nutritional one.
Okay, that seems massive.
Yeah.
So MK4 is the short-term worker. He comes in, does a quick sprint, and then he's gone.
That's a great way to describe it. Which brings us to MK7.
The long-haul hero, as the research notes call it.
Exactly. MK7 is derived primarily from bacterial fermentation. The most famous source is natto, which we will definitely get to.
Oh, we will.
But the magic of MK7 is its staying power. Because of that longer side chain, it's more lipophilic, it loves fat even more, and it stays in the blood much, much longer. It has a half-life of up to 72 hours.
3 days from a single dose.
3 days. This means that if you take it once a day, it builds up stable, steady-state levels in your blood. It remains active in your body, constantly patrolling, constantly activating osteocalcin and MGP. You get a much more sustained benefit.
So you don't have those peaks and valleys like you would with MK4.
Precisely. And the research backs this up completely. We have data from a landmark 2013 study in Osteoporosis International showing that MK7 leads to more consistent and effective carboxylation of osteocalcin at much, much lower doses compared to MK4.
It's simply more efficient.
Far more efficient.
Yeah.
In my view, and in the view of many researchers in this field, MK7 is the superior form for daily supplementation for bone and cardiovascular health.
That makes sense from a practical standpoint, too. If I could take a tiny dose once a day versus a massive, expensive dose 3 times a day, I know which one I'm choosing.
Of course. And remember the dosage difference. With MK7, we see significant benefits starting around 180 micrograms. Compare that to 45,000 micrograms for MK4. It's a totally different scale of potency.
It's not even in the same ballpark.
Not at all.
I want to circle back to something we touched on earlier, which is the relationship between vitamin D and K2. Because for years, vitamin D has been the golden child of the vitamin world.
Absolutely.
Everyone talks about vitamin D. Check your D levels. Are you getting enough sun? But looking at this research, it seems like D without K2 is, well, incomplete at best and potentially problematic at worst.
It is incomplete. And this is the new paradigm in nutrition. We used to think in isolation, vitamin C does this, vitamin D does that. Now we understand that it's all about synergy. We have to think in systems.
The source material calls it the great synergy.
It is. It's a beautiful biological partnership. Think about the sequence of events. Vitamin D3, which you get from the sun or supplements, does 2 critical things. One, as we said, it acts as the formin, increasing calcium absorption from your gut into the blood.
Okay, that's the part everyone knows.
Right. But 2, and this is the part almost no one knows, it actually upregulates the gene expression of the K2-dependent proteins we talked about.
What does that mean? It upregulates them.
It means vitamin D sends a signal to your cells to make more osteocalcin and more MGP. It literally tells the factory to increase production of these proteins.
Oh, that's fascinating. So vitamin D creates the demand.
Yes, that's the perfect way to put it. Vitamin D creates the demand for K2. It piles up the raw materials, the calcium, and it hires the workers, osteocalcin and MGP. But, and this is the crucial part, vitamin D cannot activate those workers. It can't carboxylate them. Only K2 can do that.
So if I'm taking high doses of vitamin D,
Yeah.
let's say I'm pounding 10,000 IUs a day because I live in a northern climate and I read it on a blog.
You are creating a massive army of inactive proteins, and you're absorbing a lot of calcium. You are essentially creating a biological traffic jam. You have all this potential for bone building, but no execution. And again, that calcium has to go somewhere.
So that is incredible. It's like buying a brand new Ferrari but not putting any oil in the engine. You have all this power, but you're just going to burn it out.
Perfect analogy. You need the full system to be in place.
And what about the flip side? What if I take K2 without enough vitamin D?
Well, then you have the activator, the K2 is ready to go, but you don't have enough calcium in the blood or enough of the proteins themselves to work with. The formin never showed up with the bricks. The mason is standing there with a trowel but has nothing to build with.
So it's less dangerous but still ineffective.
Exactly. You need both. D3 brings the materials and the crew. K2 puts them to work.
That's a lock and key. A beautiful system.
It's the optimal environment. You need the triad. Calcium from your diet, D3 to absorb it and make the proteins, and K2 to activate those proteins.
And the clinical observation mentioned in the text was really telling on this. It said that patients who added MK7 to an existing D3 regimen saw consistently better bone density outcomes than those on D3 alone.
Consistently. It's the difference between having a plan and actually executing the plan. It's the missing action step.
So let's talk about the people listening right now, because K2 deficiency is described in all the literature as silent. It's not like scurvy where your teeth fall out immediately or something dramatic happens overnight. How do you know if you're low?
That is the tricky part, and it's why it's so overlooked. It is a slow, cumulative issue that builds up over decades. And routine blood tests your doctor runs during a physical relation generally do not measure K2.
Can it even be tested for?
It can. You can test for uncarboxylated osteocalcin, or UCOC. A high level of that in your blood is a functional marker of K2 deficiency. It means you have a lot of those inactive proteins floating around. But your average GP isn't running that panel. It's a specialty test.
So for most of us, we have to look for clues. We have to be detectives. What are the warning signs?
The biggest one is the paradox itself. Declining bone density despite doing everything else right. If you are taking calcium in D3 and your DEXA scan is still showing osteopenia or osteoporosis, that is a huge red flag for K2 deficiency. It means the system is blocked somewhere.
What about fractures?
Frequent fractures or very slow healing from fractures. If you break a bone and it takes forever to knit back together, that suggests the mason isn't working fast enough. There isn't enough active osteocalcin to lay down the new bone matrix.
The list in our prep also mentioned dental issues. That surprised me at first, but now it makes perfect sense.
It shouldn't be surprising at all. Teeth are bone-like structures. The dentin inside your teeth relies on osteocalcin for remineralization, just like your femur does. In fact, dental health is often the canary in the coal mine for systemic mineral issues.
Weston Price was right on the money with that.
He saw it clearly a century ago.
So what are we looking for in the mouth? Just more cavities.
Frequent cavities, yes, but also tooth sensitivity or heavy tartar buildup. Think about what tartar is. It is calcified plaque on your teeth. It is calcium precipitating out of your saliva and sticking to your teeth instead of being used to remineralize the enamel.
Wow. So the plaque on my teeth is a microcosm of what might be happening in my arteries.
It is exactly the same process. It's misplaced calcium. It's a sign that your body's calcium chemistry is disordered. In fact, there is a very strong, well-established correlation between periodontal disease and cardiovascular disease. K2 is likely one of the key links connecting them.
That is deeply unsettling. Okay, so who is most at risk? I mean, besides everyone who doesn't eat natto, which we will get to.
There are definitely vulnerable populations we need to highlight. Postmenopausal women are at the top of the list.
Why them specifically?
Because estrogen is protective of bone. When estrogen levels drop during and after menopause, bone turnover accelerates dramatically. The body starts breaking down bone faster than it builds it. So the demand for K2 skyrockets to try and keep up with all the repair work.
Gut health came up too, which is interesting.
Yes, this is fascinating. We do produce a tiny amount of K2, mostly less effective forms like MK8 and MK9, but some from our gut bacteria. However, if you have been on long-term antibiotics,
Which is a lot of people.
or if you have digestive issues like Crohn's, celiac disease, or have had bariatric surgery, your absorption of fat-soluble vitamins is compromised. Antibiotics can just wipe out the K2-producing bacteria in your gut.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
We often think of antibiotics affecting digestion, but not directly affecting our bone density down the line.
Everything is connected. The microbiome is part of the skeletal system. Another big group at risk is the low-fat dieters.
Right, because K2 is fat soluble.
Exactly. You need fat to absorb it.
Oh.
If you spent the 90s and 2000s on a low-fat diet, eating egg white omelets and dry toast and those fat-free yogurts, you weren't absorbing K2 effectively. You need the lipid carrier.
And finally, the elderly.
Simply due to a combination of factors: reduced absorption efficiency as we age, and often less dietary variety.
There is one group we need to put a giant red flag on right now, and we will talk about safety more in a bit, but this is absolutely critical. People on warfarin.
Yes, this is non-negotiable and extremely important. Warfarin, which is also sold as Coumadin, and certain other older anticoagulants work specifically by being vitamin K antagonists.
What does that mean?
It means they deplete vitamin K in your body to thin the blood. That is their mechanism of action. They stop the liver from recycling vitamin K, which is needed for clotting.
So if you take a K2 supplement while you're on warfarin,
You are directly neutralizing the drug. You are fighting its mechanism.
Yeah.
You could cause your blood to clot dangerously. If you are on these specific drugs, you cannot just start taking K2. You must talk to your doctor because your medication dose would need to be adjusted and monitored carefully.
okay, that is a clear red line. Consult your doctor if you are on those types of blood thinners.
Absolutely. No exceptions.
Let's get to the food. I promised we would talk about natto, the gold standard. I have a friend who swears by this stuff, but she also makes me stand 5 feet away when she eats it.
Natto is distinct. It is an experience. And nutritionally, it is in a league of its own.
For those who have never encountered it, describe it. What are we looking at?
Okay. It is whole soybeans that have been boiled and then fermented with a specific strain of bacteria, Bacillus subtilis natto. The result is a bean that is brown, very sticky, and covered in these long, stringy, mucus-like strands. The Japanese call it neba-neba.
That sounds appetizing.
And it has a very pungent, ammoniacal smell. Some people say it smells like old cheese, others say dirty socks. It has a savory umami flavor, but the texture is slimy and stringy.
You are really selling this.
I-
I'm getting hungry just listening.
Look, it is an acquired taste for the Western palate, there is no question, but nutritionally, it is a thermonuclear powerhouse of vitamin K2.
How much are we talking?
A standard 100-gram serving of natto, about the size of a small yogurt cup, contains somewhere between 900 and 1,000 micrograms of MK7.
Whoa. Wait, remind me of the therapeutic supplement dose we talked about.
A good therapeutic supplement dose is maybe 180 to 360 micrograms. So a small bowl of natto is basically 3 to 5 times a potent supplement dose. It is the richest source of vitamin K2 on the planet. Nothing else even comes close.
And this explains the epidemiological link to bone health in Japan, right?
Yes. This is one of the strongest pieces of evidence we have. Researchers noticed that in eastern Japan, particularly around Tokyo, where natto is a breakfast staple, hip fracture rates are significantly lower than in western Japan, where they don't eat as much natto.
And both of those groups have significantly stronger bones than Western women.
Correct. And crucially, the traditional Japanese diet is often lower in calcium than the Western diet. They don't drink milk or eat a lot of cheese like we do.
That is the calcium paradox right there in a single country. It's about efficiency over sheer volume.
It suggests that utilization having the traffic director matters more than the sheer volume of cars on the road. They have the Activator X, they have the K2. Okay, but let's be real. I have tried natto. I struggled. The texture is what got me. So if I can't stomach the sticky beans, where else can I get it? What are the Western sources?
In the Western diet, it is much harder, and the amounts are much smaller. Your best bet is certain aged cheeses.
Cheese. I can do cheese.
The bacteria used to ferment cheeses like Gouda and Brie, specifically Propionibacteria, produce the longer-chain menachinones like MK8 and MK9, which are structurally similar and effective like MK7. You get about 75 micrograms per 100 grams of aged Gouda.
So you'd have to eat a lot of cheese every day to hit a therapeutic level.
A fair amount. And it has to be real, traditionally fermented cheese, not processed American slices. Then you have animal fats. Goose liver is actually very high.
So foie gras for bone health?
Technically, yes, though not many people eat foie gras daily, and it's extremely expensive and controversial.
Not on my weekly shopping list.
Exactly. Then you have egg yolks from pasture-raised chickens and grass-fed butter. These contain MK4, but again, the amounts are very small, maybe 15 to 30 micrograms per serving. So to reach that therapeutic level, to get the 180 micrograms we see in studies, you'd need to eat blocks of cheese or sticks of butter every single day.
Which brings its own set of problems for your caloric intake and your lipid profile. It's just not practical.
Right. So the reality check here is that it is very, very difficult to reach study-level therapeutic dosages of K2 through a standard Western diet unless you are eating natto.
That is the conclusion many experts in this field have reached. We evolved eating organ meats and fermented foods. Our modern, sanitized diet has largely eliminated our K2 sources. So unless you embrace natto, you are likely falling short of the optimal levels for bone and heart protection.
Which brings us logically to supplementation. If diet isn't enough for most of us, how do we supplement correctly? The source material gives us some specific numbers.
It does, and it's important to state that because diet is often insufficient, MK7 supplementation is a very well-researched, validated, and safe alternative.
What's the baseline dose for someone who is generally healthy?
For general maintenance, someone just wanting to stay healthy, maybe in their 30s or 40s with no known bone issues, a dose of 100 to 200 micrograms of MK7 daily is the standard recommendation. This mimics a healthy dietary intake you might get if you were eating a lot of those traditional K2-rich foods.
Okay. And for someone who already has issues, maybe they have a DEXA scan showing osteopenia or a strong family history of osteoporosis.
Then we move into the therapeutic range. The research suggests 180 to 360 micrograms daily. There are studies using even higher doses safely, but 180 to 360 is the sweet spot where we see maximum carboxylation of osteocalcin. Of course, at that level, you should ideally be doing this under some supervision or guidance to monitor things.
And just to contrast again, we mentioned MK4 earlier, requiring those massive doses.
Yes, 45 milligrams or 45,000 micrograms. So unless you are prescribed that specific protocol by a specialist for a very specific condition for general bone and heart health, you want to stick to MK7. It's more practical, more efficient, and you don't have to take pills 3 times a day.
Now, the absorption rule. This seems really important. You mentioned it's fat soluble. Does that mean I absolutely need to take it with a meal?
Yes, this is a common failure point. People take their vitamins in the morning with just a gulp of water and black coffee. If you do that with K2 or vitamin D or A or E, you are just flushing money down the toilet. It needs fat to be emulsified and transported across the intestinal wall.
So take it with dinner or any meal with fat.
Or with a breakfast that has some fat in it. Eggs, avocado, full-fat yogurt, even just a splash of cream in your coffee.
Sure.
Just ensure there's a lipid carrier to shuttle it into your system.
Got it. And let's reiterate the safety profile. Aside from the crucial warfarin warning, is it safe long-term?
Very safe. It is a natural vitamin, not a drug. There is no known toxicity level for K2 established in clinical studies. You don't overdose on it in the traditional sense because the body regulates the activation of those proteins.
How so?
Once all your osteocalcin and MGP are activated or carboxylated, The extra K2 just circulates or is excreted. It doesn't force calcium into places it shouldn't go. The system is self-limiting in that way.
That's very reassuring. Now, the timeline for results. This is key for managing expectations. If I start taking K2 tomorrow, when are my bones fixed?
Patience is key here. And this is where people often give up. Bone remodeling is a very slow biological process. It takes months.
Months.
Years, really, to see a big change. You might see improved lab markers, like a drop in that uncarboxylated osteocalcin we talked about, in 4 to 8 weeks. That tells you the system is working and the K2 is doing its job.
But to see a change on a DXA scan, an actual increase in bone mineral density.
You need to give it 12 to 36 months of consistency, at least a full year, more likely 2 or 3.
So this is a marathon, not a sprint. You are rebuilding a house brick by brick, and that takes time.
Bone health is always a marathon. You are fighting entropy, and that's a long-term commitment.
Speaking of marathons, let's zoom out to the holistic strategy. Because you can't just pop a K2 pill, sit on the couch, eat junk food, and expect to have steel bones.
Unfortunately not. K2 is powerful, but it's part of a team. It's a traffic director, but you still need the road crew and the construction workers to show up.
So what else is on the team? What's the foundation?
Physical stimulus is absolutely non-negotiable.
What's that?
It states that bone grows and remodels in response to the forces that are placed upon it. Your osteoblasts, the builder cells, are lazy. They need to be told to work.
And the signal that tells them to work is stress.
Mechanical stress, impact, and resistance. The physical bending and compression of the bone from exercise sends a piezoelectric signal to the cells that says, hey, we need to be stronger here.
So weight-bearing exercise.
Walking, lifting weights, jumping ropes, even things like yoga or tennis. Anything where you are fighting gravity. If you don't use the bone, the body thinks you don't need it and stops wasting precious energy and resources maintaining it.
Use it or lose it.
Literally. Astronauts lose bone mass rapidly in zero gravity for this exact reason. There's no signal to maintain the skeleton.
Okay, so exercise is number one. What about other dietary support?
Protein. This is a big one that gets missed. Your bone matrix is about 30% protein, primarily collagen. It's not just chalk. It's a flexible, living tissue. If you aren't eating enough protein, you don't have the scaffolding to put the minerals on.
And magnesium, it was mentioned in the notes.
Essential. Magnesium is required for over 300 enzyme systems in the body, including the conversion and activation of vitamin D. If you are low on magnesium, and most people are because our soil is depleted, your vitamin D doesn't work as well, which means your calcium absorption drops. It's all a chain reaction.
So K2 needs D and D needs magnesium. It's a cascade.
It's all connected. And collagen is emerging as well. Supplementing with collagen may provide the body with the specific amino acid building blocks for that protein matrix we just talked about.
And then there are the subtractions. What are the lifestyle choices that act as bone killers?
Smoking is a big one. The toxins in smoke are directly poisonous to osteoblasts. Excessive alcohol intake interferes with mineral balance. High sodium diets are another. Excess salt causes you to excrete calcium in your urine.
What about stress?
Chronic stress is a huge factor. High stress means high cortisol. And cortisol is a catabolic hormone. It breaks things down. It actually leaches minerals from your bones to free them up for the fight or flight response.
Wow. So stress literally gets under your skin and into your bones. That brings a whole new meaning to feeling it in your bones.
It does. Managing stress is a bone health strategy.
I like the philosophy mentioned in the notes about banking bone. It's like a retirement account for your skeleton.
It's a great concept. You reach your peak bone mass around age 25 to 30. That's when your account is fullest. After that, for most people, it's about managing withdrawals. The more you put in the bank when you're young, the better off you are later in life.
But for the listeners over 30, it's not a lost cause.
Not at all. It is never too late to slow the rate of loss or, importantly, to improve the quality and flexibility of the bone you have. You can always improve the situation. You can stop the leak. You can strengthen the existing matrix.
So let's summarize this, because we have covered a tremendous amount of ground. We started with a paradox. Plenty of calcium in the diet, but weak, fracturing bones.
And we found the solution, the missing link, the traffic director, vitamin K2.
It has a unique double benefit that almost no other nutrient has.
It simultaneously strengthens the skeleton by putting calcium where it belongs and protects the cardiovascular system by keeping calcium out of where it doesn't belong.
We learned that K2 is not K1. K1 is for clotting in the liver. K2 is for calcium everywhere else.
And we learned that MK7 is the long-haul hero compared to the short-acting MK4, making it the superior choice for supplementation.
And we learned that natto is the undisputed king. But supplements are a valid and necessary alternative for those of us who can't handle the slime.
And most importantly, we learned that D3 needs K2, like a car needs a steering wheel. Taking one without the other is asking for trouble.
Exactly. I want to leave our listeners with a final thought, something the expert sources hinted at that really made me think. If we spent decades missing this critical piece of the puzzle, if we spent years telling people to just take calcium without realizing we might have been inadvertently calcifying their arteries, what else is out there?
That is the provocative question, isn't it? If we have solved the puzzle of where calcium goes, what other silent deficiencies are we overlooking in modern medicine because we are focused on the wrong markers?
Right, we look at cholesterol or blood pressure, but not necessarily the underlying structural issues.
We look at symptoms, but things like K2 deficiency are happening quietly under the surface for decades, affecting the fundamental integrity of our bodies.
It really encourages you to view your health as an interconnected system. It's all checks and balances. It's not just isolated inputs.
Precisely. It's about how the whole machine works together. You can't just treat one part without affecting the whole system.
Well, this has been an absolute eye-opener for me. I'm definitely going to be looking into my own K2 status, and I think I might even have to give natto one more try.
Good luck with that. Let me know how it goes.
For everyone listening, please remember, we are diving deep into the research, but we are not your doctors. Especially if you are on medication like warfarin, please consult your healthcare provider before making any changes to your supplement routine.
Always. Safety first.
If you enjoyed this deep dive and want to keep optimizing your health with us, make sure you subscribe to the channel. We have some incredible topics coming up that you won't want to miss.
Thanks for listening.